western rocks of Scilly, each one with its own shipwrecked story to tell. And I'm here to bring you just a few of those stories. The Cockney Buccaneer. So today we're going to go and have a look at a little wreck that they believe to be the Princess Maria that sank in 1686. It was found by a guy who led a team whose name was Rex Cowan, and they found a Dutch ship and it was never actually fully identified, but we'll go and have a look at that today. Princess Maria, she was a Dutch East Indiaman of the VOC company. She carried the largest consignment of silver bullion ever transported of that time. This cargo was reflected in the size of the ship. She was 46 guns, about 450 tons, and she had a crew of 250 men. She was outward bound, and being outward bound, that's the reason she carried such a large treasure. Right, so on the chart, just show you where we are. We've come from St Mary's, which is over here, and the wreck is about probably 5 miles, 5.5 miles, and she's here by the Western Rocks by a place called Silver Carn, and we're anchored just here. Right, so we're anchored over the site now, hopefully. The Princess Maria was lost on a rock called Silver Carn, or so they tell me. Silver Carn's behind me. And yeah, there's a load of timber down there as I remember, and a few cannons still lit at the seabed. And if we're really lucky we might get to find a rudder, but most of these things are buried in the sand, so I can't promise. Princess Maria that sank in 1686, she carried the largest bullion of her time. We don't know exactly how much she had on board, but what we do know is that a Thomas Eakins, who was the steward of the islands, raised something like 14,000 pieces of 8 from the wreck, and he did it for King James. Now the Princess Maria was named after King James's Protestant daughter Mary. And when he sent Eakins to get the treasure off the wreck, he sent his yacht Isabella. Isabella was his favourite Catholic daughter. Now this caused a great big scandal internationally, and the Dutch were up in arms about it because it was their ship and their treasure, and he tried to hide that fact. Now at the time, the law was that if there was even a living thing on board, so much as a dog, you couldn't claim salvage to a wreck. And there's always been a rumour that there were a couple of survivors from the Princess Maria and that King James had them killed or done away with, which is a little bit on the sneaky side. You can see how clear the water is here. Now you can understand how Eakins managed to get 14,000 coins off of the Princess Maria. You know, they could pretty much see most of it on the seabed. You know, they would have been just fishing from the surface to get the guns and stuff up, and that's why there's not many guns left down there. Now these are a few of the types of coins that the Princess Maria carried. They're Dutch. These ones are called Silver Riders. Now we know that Thomas Eakins salvaged 14,000 of these from the wreck. They were being used to trade in the east, to buy spices, that kind of thing. Now we don't know exactly how many were on board, but it's very doubtful that he got them all. So the anchor was right over the main area of structure, timber structure, which I showed you at the bottom there. It's well buried in the sand. The whole wreck is buried. There's probably a lot more to it than I realise. That's all buried in the sand there. We also went over 2 cannons, which were just behind the boat here. And then a little bit further on there was her keel, and her keel is pointing straight towards Silver Carn, which is, they say, where she struck. And lastly, King James did the only other thing he could do to hide the fact that he'd stolen this treasure, and that was he had the wreck struck from all records of the time. It wasn't allowed to be spoken about, written about, or anything. So there are very, very few records of this sinking.